Welcome to the Weekly Dose Podcast, your one-stop shop for the weekly news in incretin mimetic therapies, with your host, man on the Manjaro, Dave Knapp.
Welcome to the April 9th edition of the Weekly Dose Podcast. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen. That's why you're here. Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, Zepbound, that pen. That's what we talk about here on this podcast. This is your one-stop shop for incretin mimetic news, also known as GLP-1 medications. Let's get right into it. A huge week in the world of On the Pen. If you've been living under a GLP-1 rock, you wouldn't know this. So I'm going to share it with you in case you've been under that rock. This week, On the Pen's hashtag Release the Vials was featured in Bloomberg. And so special shout out to Madison Muller, who actually joined us for this past week's edition of On the Pen live on Thursday night on YouTube. If you did not get a chance to check that out, please do. Madison is a huge asset to the GLP-1 community, having a huge passion to tell the stories of those in the community and bring news that is relevant to not only the investors, which seems to be so much of the focus of the news, but to the patients. And so her highlight of the campaign was much appreciated, which led to today's amazing interview with Yahoo Finance, where I had the chance to join their great team over there at Yahoo Finance and talk a little bit about the Release the Vials campaign, as well as my journey to GLP-1 medications and to making content just like this. So thank you to them. Thank you to Madison over at Bloomberg for highlighting this campaign. Please continue as you talk about shortages, as you talk about issues to accessibility right now, compounds, whatever it may be. Please use the hashtag Release the Vials. We're really hoping that we're going to see the needle move here on this. And I believe that we are, and I believe that we've been a part of it. So if you have shared videos using that hashtag, if you have shared content using this hashtag, or even watched On the Pen live, listen to this podcast, thank you for supporting the movement. I think that we're starting to really make an impact, and I am hopeful that we will see the vials released after this the upcoming earnings call that Eli Lilly will have within the next couple of weeks here at the end of April. So awesome news. Thank you again to those who liked and shared and commented on those videos. It is much appreciated. So some interesting news today about the potential merger between Catalent and Novo Nordisk. So to recap, Catalent is the generics manufacturer basically that does a lot of filling of pens for not only Novo Nordisk, but for Eli Lilly, and does tons of medication for major drug manufacturers across the world. And Novo Nordisk, in an effort to greatly expand their manufacturing capacity, put in an offer to purchase, which was agreed to Catalent for, I believe, around $16 billion. This, of course, has to pass regulators in the United States. And the challenge with that is this is not going to happen without some major opposition, because Catalent continues to fill pens for Eli Lilly, as I said, and the thought of them becoming a branch or an extended arm of one of their largest, if not largest, competitor in the market is not going to be something that they don't go down without swinging. So basically this paperwork was refiled in the United States to extend time for regulators to review that. Last we heard was Novo Nordisk was looking at the end of the year to be the sort of consummation date, so to speak, of this deal with Catalent. I am guessing, based upon their need to file the extension and to try to get their ducks in a row to make this happen, I am thinking that this is not going to get done this year, if at all. If at all, I do think that it's sort of a swing for the fences on Novo Nordisk part. It'll be interesting to see where it goes and if they're able to accomplish that. But we will definitely keep you posted on that here at On the Pen, the Weekly Dose. And we got some top-line data from the company Altimmune on a phase 2 trial of their investigational peptide called pemvidutide. Pemvidutide is a really exciting molecule that is in the works from our friends at Altimmune. And it is very interesting. This one combines GLP-1 and glucagon. You may remember glucagon from retatrutide. So retatrutide basically adds a glucagon agonism to what was formerly known under tirzepatide as just a GLP-1 and GIP. So retatrutide sort of takes that to the next level, adds the glucagon component. So with pemvidutide, you just have a GLP-1 receptor agonist and you have this glucagon component. And what they found in this weight loss was very interesting because with tirzepatide and semaglutide, people could see up to a 40% loss in muscle mass and lean muscle tissue. So you have Eli Lilly and Novo Nordisk both looking at options to sort of pair the molecules, semaglutide and tirzepatide respectively, with some sort of muscle preserving agent. You saw that, of course, most notably in Eli Lilly's acquisition of bimagrumab, which was historically tested in cancer patients to help preserve muscle mass, in especially in the elderly population. And so the potential of pairing tirzepatide with bimagrumab would be their stab at that. Obviously, you've also seen similar partnerships between Novo Nordisk with semaglutide and Regeneron. So they're obviously looking at ways to take their existing molecules and help to preserve and even build muscle mass. Pemvidutide by itself helped patients to lose a pretty significant amount of weight. About 75% of that weight loss with pemvidutide was fat and only about 25% muscle mass. Now, we've talked about this many times before on my channel, where extreme weight loss comes with a certain amount of muscle mass loss wherever and however you lose the weight. So obviously it's something that we want to pay attention to. That's why many of us content creators in the GLP-1 space are always encouraging people to prioritize protein as they're reducing their calories, to make sure that they are doing everything they can from a dietary standpoint to preserve their muscle mass. Of course, including some resistance training is going to be critical in that process as well. So pemvidutide, the dual agonist GLP-1 and glucagon from Altimmune, showing some really exciting clinical trial data in phase 2. Obviously, phase 3 will be the telltale on that. So we're a ways away, probably a couple years away at a minimum, from seeing pemvidutide from Altimmune hit the market. But some really interesting information this week from them. Make sure that you check out the article in the show. In some positive news about the GLP-1 GIP blockbuster tirzepatide news, positive news. We don't always give you positive news in this world, but some positive news today. Eli Lilly, and this one's from Bloomberg. Eli Lilly broke ground today on a plant near Frankfurt, Germany, where they plan to begin construction in earnest this summer, hopefully completed by 2027, a $2.5 billion plant that will create 1,000 jobs in Germany, which will help to bring tirzepatide to the European market. So this is some amazing news for our friends over in the United Kingdom, over in Germany, who look to get access to these medications. You know, currently they have the single dose vials in Canada and in Australia. Of course, we know that they launched the multi-use quick pen over in the United Kingdom just several weeks ago, but we know that the issues that they're dealing with over there from a scarcity standpoint are worse than they are here. So this is excellent news for them as capacity comes online there in the next couple of years. Hopefully more and more people over the next couple of years over in the United Kingdom, over in Germany, will be able to get access to tirzepatide. On the topic of using GLP-1s overseas, we've got a really interesting story kind of churning over in Australia that really could put compounded versions of semaglutide and tirzepatide at risk over there. So they're looking at somebody who they call the cowboy pharmacist, the Ozempic cowboy, right, who is selling knockoff versions of both tirzepatide and semaglutide. And unfortunately, he is impossible to find. He's been selling a lot of these via the old fax troller, Interestingly enough, I mean, if there isn't a reputable place to get your medicine, I'm pretty sure it's got to be the guy who's sending you faxes about them, right? That should be your first sign, friends in Australia. But here's the deal. People are getting some serious symptoms from these compounds over there, some peripheral neuropathy, finding super high levels of vitamin B6 in these people when they're tested. The interesting thing about this Ozempic knockoff is that it is a bright red color, and that is typically common with B6 injections. So it'll be interesting to watch, because what we're concerned about over there for our friends who really struggle with access just as much as we do over here, if not more, is that they could be losing access to their compounds because there's a lot of unsafe versions going around that are really causing harm to people. And of course, those are the kinds of things we worry about in the United States here as well. We worry about compounds from, maybe some less reputable pharmacies. We worry about the research grade stuff that gets floated around and really in the media, just sort of mixed in with the shuffle when people talk about compounds, even though they're quite different. These are the things that we have to watch and keep an eye on, because, we want people to be able to maintain access to their medication. It's so difficult to do right now. So our friends who are on compounded medications, these are the stories we want to be watching, because this could signal, potential issues in Australia. And I would not be surprised that at some point these sort of issues pop up over here as I see more extreme cases of, this past week, I've heard from 4 or 5 different people that their clinicians, their prescribing clinicians are offering compounded retatrutide, a medicine that hasn't even completed in some cases hasn't even started phase 3 trials. So this is astounding. This is going to be one that we need to watch here in the United States, because I think people are getting quite brazen, especially doctors, quite brazen about trying to profit off of this craze, and that can only lead to bad things. So we'll keep an eye on it. That we'll be all over these things at On the Pen. Thank you for being here. Make sure you go check out the interview from Yahoo Finance this week. Make sure you check out Madison's article in Bloomberg. There will be more to come from On the Pen. This is just the start. Thank you for being the best part of what we do here On the Pen. Make sure you leave the podcast a 5-star rating and review. Really appreciate you being here. Until next week, we will see you on the